All right, so we're going to start with page 1. I figure we'll go through this initially on in order, and then we're just going to start walking backward, trying to figure out who done it, where done it, all sorts of things like that. So I think the very first thing that I should do is create a hashtag, or a tag for this particular page. And so let's go. I sit down alone at the appointed table and take up my pen to give all whom it may concern an exact account of what happened, of what may happen. Call me nervous, call me fey, if you will. At least this little pen, this mottled black and silver Aquarius with its nib specially tempered to my order in Amsterdam, is greedy. It has not had much work since it flew so nimbly for the dead old man. As I watch the sea, Casey Ferris passes with down-dropped eyes. Of course, today is the day. Her father reminds me of a valedictorian walrus, but she has, I suppose, to have somebody. Saint Lazarus in the Chine is full, no doubt, already. I think she is rash, but it is none of my business. Where about the graves of martyrs, the whups are crying, my heart remembers how. Strange that he comes into my head so much today. I hope that it's over some flotsam fish that the birds are making whoopee. But all the nice gulls love a sailor. So there's a narrator, right? And so I'm interested, who is this person talking? We're going to say narrator, page 1. Wanted to write something. So they're talking about a silver Aquarius. Now, if you've never seen a silver Aquarius, oh gosh, I got to stop opening my email apparently. Silver Aquarius pen. I believe he's referring to as a fountain pen. And he's talking about this nib, especially tempered to my order in Amsterdam, is greedy. Mottled black and silver Aquarius. I'll have to look up a picture of it later. They talk about Amsterdam, so we'll put a tag for that as well, because that might be a location. And we'll put a tag on that as well. And then there is a person named Casey Ferris. We also know that he's sitting, if he's in Amsterdam, I'm assuming it's a he because I'm a guy, and so I assume my own gender when given a chance. Casey Ferris also has a father who is dead. Flew so nimbly for the dead old man. So I think we're going to add a thingy, or not a folder. We'll add a note. That note should be called um, phrases. Oops. Rename. Because I'm curious if these phrases end up showing back up. Let's see. Page 1. They mention the sea. They mention valetudinarian walruses. I'm curious if this is actually a thing, or if it was a thing and we call it something else now. Because the one thing that I'm entertained by this book is that not only are you trying to solve an old mystery, you're trying to solve an old mystery in old language. I mean, I guess that's just a standard walrus, although it looks like it's not really picking anything up. Now, this is the thing that I don't know, which is pound St. Lazarus in the chine. This sounds like this woman wants or has desired to be full, no doubt. So we should probably put a couple of notes, I think, on this is where I can't remember how to bring back up the thing that I was looking for. Oh, let's pick it that way. So, let me turn off graph view here. So the St. Lazarus in the chine, I mean, I can look it up online, but I have a feeling that this is going to be something that I'm not necessarily, that it might give me some spoilers and things like that. So if I were a guessing person, right, because this is a book, and so there's going to be metaphors and alliteration and things like this. Down-dropped eyes. So down-dropped, she's either sad or she doesn't want to be talked to. There's a whole bunch of ways that you can interpret that. But one way that's interesting to think about this St. Lazarus in the chine being full, is the very next sentence. Or I guess 2 sentences in. Where about the graves of the martyrs, the whoops are crying. WHAUPS. What the hell is that? And this is Bob. Bob is always aggressive and needing to be petted. So if this is a church, right, it makes perfect sense that is a church. So I think the question that I have coming out of this page is pretty straightforward. It seems that her father is dead. And it would seem that maybe the pen that he's holding was her pen, was her dad's pen. So is he staying with them? And I guess this is another question, which is, Casey Ferris's if Casey Ferris's dad is dead, and the narrator currently has an old pen that he had, then how did her dad die? Why is Casey still upset about it? And why is the narrator thinking of it so much? So I think we're going to move on from page 1, and we're going to go on to page 2. I plunged for the last time. The few remaining figures and letters swam as they came up to me. Then I took them in. There were no more. I glanced about me. I felt I was getting my money's worth. London is like that. It accepts the wanderer home with a sort of warm indifference. The woman's beauty was, I surmised, profound. Her creamy dress, contrasting with her vivid coloring, showed to me, though more as white against a gay brick sepulchre, I can't ever say that word correctly, than snow against roses. Yes, it was a dreadful beauty as far as I could see, and I recalled the stark phrases which swept 100,000 souls away, yet I alive. But he was not. The writer had strangely died today. And again they continued this wretched course 3 or 4 days. But they were every one of them carried into the great pit before it was quite filled up. Where was Henry? Ah, he was standing by her close enough to touch the small buoyant face that topped her pillared neck, most like a bellflower on its bed. Would he appreciate? So this page is interesting. I suppose all these pages are going to be interesting, but I plunged for the last time. The few remaining figures and letters swam as they came up to me. So is this the narrator is reading? Is that what they're talking about plunging into? Why are they coming back home to London? Who is this woman? And she says, yes, it was a dreadful beauty as far as I could see, and I recalled the stark phrases. So I think we might have our first mention of a murder, though I'm going to guess this is something of a red herring. So there is an author who died. Could this be Casey Ferris's dad? Or is it the page one dad, narrator? So I'm curious now. There's a person here. So we can say woman, page 2. Sepulcher. I'm going to add a few things here. So narrator. So we can find these later. Casey Ferris. And this is kind of not a great tag, but we're going to go ahead and go with it. Has a father who's dead. So there wasn't really on page 1 any sort of description of this particular person. We just know that her eyes were downdropped. And then he kind of alliterates to martyrdom and wonders about, like, oh, I can't believe this woman wants to martyr herself too. And that's something interesting to kind of think about in the future. So the writer had strangely died today. It almost sounds like they're throwing the author's letters into a pit, and this person is there. Now, the one person that I'm interested in is this person, Henry. They're sent to... They're said to be near the woman. He was standing by her close enough to touch the small, buoyant face. And so we'll put that note in there as well. So right now, the few remaining figures and letters swam as they came up to me. Then I took them in. There were no more. I glanced about me. I felt I was getting my money's worth. London is like that. It accepts the wanderer home with a sort of warm indifference. She was a beautiful woman. She apparently had on a white dress and had red skin. Is interesting. I'm interested about this phrase because it kind of sounds like maybe there was some sort of I'm interested in this phrase because this is a bit of a stretch, but like this Stark phrases concept 100,000 souls. I'm alive. Wretched course, 3 or 4 days. Great pit. It seems like they're mentioning a plague. Because if this is in the 30s, if this is in the 40s, 30s, I guess, it would be post the war. And the reason that I'm thinking about this is I'm a big fan of Robinson Crusoe, which is written by William or Daniel Defoe is who I'm thinking of. Daniel Defoe, who wrote Robinson Crusoe, also wrote another book. And that book is called Journal of the Plague Year. And I suppose that I don't honestly know. And so it has some phrasings like that. I don't honestly know when this book is supposed to be taking place, so I suppose that I shouldn't be thinking about its publication date, but that its particular date seems to be a little troublesome. Now, they already have fountain pens. Black and White Aquarius, they still make pens like that, but those pens would have been around the time that all of that stuff was around. Up until that point, like, we're still using quills and things like that. Or if we were to go completely nuts, glass pens or glass nibs. But like we're talking about a fountain pen, which means that they've got a bunch of ink that they can either dip their pen into, but then we're talking about a fine nib. And so I guess I need to do a little bit of research to figure out when fine nib pens and when different kinds of nibs were available for pens. So there's an event note that I want to make in here. Because if they're throwing bodies into a pit, it's typically when people would die. There were so many people dying, they would put them in to a particular pit. Now, I'm thinking of Daniel Defoe, but when was the Spanish flu? The Spanish flu would actually fall within the timeline of when I'm assuming this book exists. So the Spanish flu was right after World War I. So from like 1918 all the way up until the 1920s. And it killed a huge amount of people. And so there are still pits that we're discovering here and there. And so I'm interested in, is it the Spanish flu of 1918 to, we'll just say 1920. And we're actually going to make the Spanish flu into a tag for now. And so we know then that London is a particular tag that we need to concern ourselves with. It is on page 2. Dreadful beauty. It was a dreadful beauty. And so they seem to be referring to this woman in the past tense. Now, in a book, past tense could mean that you're simply not in front of that person anymore, right? So, they were a pretty woman. Or it could be that they're no longer on this earth. Oh, they were pretty. I miss them, etc. And so I'm curious about, and also I don't know what this woman's name is. And so we've got a Henry in here, and so we need to think about that. This page, I initially went through it, and I thought, oh, there's nothing here. But how long did the Spanish flu take to kill? That'll be something else that I gotta look up later. All right, so we've got a few notes here and there. Let's move on to page 3. Okay, go up there. At my meeting with Clement yesterday, he had been quite specific. Less than 20,000 yards, as average, 17,600 to be exact, full ration of the assassin's wonderful substance. A little act of justice at the end of less than a week, and then the glorious stuff galore forever. I felt excellent as I took my second pill. At least I was on my way, for I had come upon the major half of a publishing firm. They had always been very good to me. What with Austin Freeman, Oppenheim, and Mary Roberts Reinhardt. Oh, my mother was loath to have her go away. All the week she thought of her. She watched for her many a month. And then there was a forgotten line. But the Red Squaw never came, nor was heard of there again. I thought it a pity that Hodder was not there. What a sweet name for a village. My signs are a rainproof coat, good shoes. No friend of mine takes his ease in my chair. I have no chair. That almost reads like a suicide note. That's super interesting. So, page 3. So there's a mention of a person named Clement. So we'll put them into the people name. I'm curious, how long is 20,000 yards? 72,000 inch or 720,000 inches. Let's go with mile. That's super weird. Why is this person talking about 11 miles of something? 11 miles of an assassin substance? That doesn't seem right. So this might actually be the first time that we get something of a murder weapon. And I suppose that that should be... Huh. Put a hashtag in front of that, or tag in front of that. We're going to put a tag in front of assassin as well. Took my second pill. And then we have a whole bunch of names. So we've got Austin Freeman. Oppenheim. So Oppenheim is another person name. And I used the wrong symbol. And we're going to put mother. And I need to put a note in here that it's page 3 mother, not Mike Pence's mom. Hotter. Page 3. Hotter. The thing that's kind of interesting about this particular thing, 3 names associated with a publishing firm. The end of this is an interesting little phrase, and that is, my signs are a rain-proof coat, good shoes. No friend of mine takes his ease in my chair. I have no chair. So this person seems to be living in squalor against the wishes of their mother. They seem to have some sort of intent to murder and are excited about it in less than a week. And we're going to put justice in a tag here. Because I'm really curious about this. They're going to kill somebody and they call it justice. That's super interesting. The Red Squaw never came nor was heard of there again. I'm interested in Red Squaw. So the thing about this last half of this So, oh, my mother was loath to have her go away. All the weeks she thought of her, she watched for her many a month. And then there was a forgotten line. But the Red Squaw never came and was heard from again. So, there's something interesting here because these are lines from a poem. And it is from Walt Whitman, The Sleepers. And so that's kind of referring to this forgotten line. The whole poem, let's see if I can find it. This is this is of interest. And so, and she watched for her many a month, and then there was a forgotten line. She remembered her many a winter and many a summer. But the Red Squaw. So, like, that is from a poem. So I'm interested. The other thing that's of interest to this is that if this is a poem, then there's a red herring already, which is that Mother is a character in a poem. Maybe not necessarily here. This person is mostly just sort of establishing themselves as working for or being published by somebody. And then the use of this literature seems to kind of point to that fact further, right? It's stabilizing it in some capacity. We're definitely going to have to go back and look at some of these stuff, look at some of these things. And I really think I would have preferred the Maestro Jimson's title, now that this piled abomination is actually before me. But the queen can do no wrong. The rain that came heavily is drying off lightly. There, jauntily tipping from the edge of one puddle to another, is crisp Sir Roland Mothelorn. What? Sir Roland Mothelorn? That sounds like a Dungeons and Dragons character. Shuddering old thing, intent to buy the day's buttonhole from gin-faced Annie behind the church. I remember clearly, because I ought to have my wits about me for another purpose, how Sir Roland's father, Sir Whedon, once saw Henry taking the part of Le Cirque and mixed him up with Le Cirque de Hiver. I don't know how to say that name. Instead of really explaining, she points me gaily to a little boy about, she says, to tumble into the sea. Perhaps he has already tumbled in. In the snowy cumulus above the orange, there seems to now be a hole. She tells me to mash all with a spoon. If she had said a mashie. But she is so beautiful, can I suspect her? That's super fun too. Man, you know, I've wanted to do this for a while now, but I never really got into it. And then today, since the semester is starting soon, I thought that I would go through it all. Or I would start going through it. This can be my semester project. Hopefully it'll work. I don't know. Now, the thing that's interesting here I think that this is actually a nothing burger, but Maestro Jimson. I'm almost positive this isn't actually a person. This is kind of referring to a thing. But Maestro Jimson, Queen. Sir Roland Mothelorn. That's too long for me to want to do that with. We're just going to put, this is an old man shuddering buttonhole, gin-faced Annie. I'm going to guess that Sir Whedon's last name is Mothelorn as well, since he seems to be the father of Sir Roland. Although, no, that would make sense. So now I have to go back and fix this. Roland. Father of Roland. Gin-faced Annie is just mentioned. So there's something fun going on here. Hotter and hiver. Dehiver. Diver? What is buttonhole? So buttonhole in this particular circumstance, and we're going to put this in here under page 4. From what I can tell, buttonhole is a verb in this circumstance, wherein you basically go, hey, let's have a conversation, and then you talk to them kind of against their will and sort of detain them. This is something the elderly do, where they haven't talked to somebody in a long time or over the course of a day, and they want to actually talk to somebody. And, you know, as somebody who's getting older now, I'm in my mid-40s, the likelihood that I will talk to somebody over the course of a day, especially when I'm not at work and my wife is, the likelihood I'll talk to somebody is really low. And so then when Kristen comes home or my wife comes home, I basically talk her ear off until she just goes, what the hell? Shut up. She doesn't really say that. So he's an old man, meaning that his father is probably gone. What is this Lyserx? This is a super interesting thing. This is an interesting turn of phrase. So, like, Lyserx, and I know I'm saying that wrong. Was a person who got convicted of a murder robbery and then was guillotined. Cirque, this other thing, This is a venue, specifically for circuses and things like that. So this is mentioned, and this is like a weird phrase, right? Henry is taking the part of somebody falsely accused. Is she saying it incorrectly? And then she points to a little boy who is about to tumble in the sea. So did he mistake Sir Roland as having done a crime and then sent him to the circus? We're going to put page notes on here. What piled abomination? The Queen? Why is the Queen mentioned here? I ought to have my wits about me for another purpose. What is that purpose? So Henry took the part of this falsely accused person. She points me gaily to a little boy about and says to tumble into the sea. So page 5 is super interesting. Let's go. Oh, apparently did I not open it? Oh, I thought I did. All right. Let me grab that page. I hated my eye for being caught by what didn't concern me, the powerful grip of the new young man, but it was parading a couple of letters for all to see. Thomas Hardy had been, and my doctor uncle in the war had just the reverse. And I would have to cut out the stops. I realized futilely, for something vaguely Buddhistic, he went on about Browning. I always used bestow myself, and anyway, Henry, the angel, was plying his intended fifth with Emperor's peg, equal parts of vitriol and applejack in his case. At the top of the ruined lighthouse, I incontinently powdered my nose. He told me that as far as I could gather, a certain good-looking Evelyn Hope was dead. What hopes? I meant, did one know the family? It was really the way he took it for granted that I would rather hear him talking about Cerebus or Cerebos or Cerebus or something than attend to poor Henry that irritated me beyond endurance. So this is what? The third mention of Henry? But are they talking about... I just don't know. So Evelyn Hope was dead. I hated my eye for being caught by it didn't concern me. So the new young man. So I'm curious about Browning versus Browning Bistow. So Bistow is gravy. Cerebus is salt. Isn't it? Maybe it isn't. Yeah, it is a brand of salt. I think Emperor's Peg is a drink. Applying his intended fifth with Emperor's Peg, equal parts of vitriol and applejack in his case. At the top of the ruined lighthouse. So they're drinking on at top of a lighthouse. And it looks like the narrator is it cocaine, snuff? I'm curious about this. So Henry is telling this story to the narrator. So now we have a new, not event, but location notes. So this is going to be a lighthouse. This is going to be page 5. Yeah, I think 5 pages a day is going to be something that I can actually keep up with. Because at this point, I'm starting to get a little weary, a little tired, because this amount of detail is nuts. So, like, the only things that I've really discovered, or the only things that I've really noticed, is that there seems to be a person named Henry who is a drunk. There's an old man. So the narrator wants to write something. Most of these pages have been referencing the act of writing in some capacity. I'm super curious about this. So, like, I need to put this Evelyn Hope. So, if Evelyn Hope who is a beautiful woman, if she is the woman mentioned in the other pages, so there's this woman, creamy dress, red, all sorts of stuff like that. So is Evelyn Hope this woman? I'm curious. And so if the woman is dead, let's put so we know that Evelyn Hope is dead. We know that Casey, what was her name? Casey Ferris. So at this point, we at least have a number of characters and a number of, like, events that have come in here. That first page, I feel like there is a lot going on in there. And then in this page, on page 5, there is an equal amount of stuff going on here. Now, the thing that's frustrating is that you can't know if what you're chasing and what you're looking at is a red herring or not. And so that's super frustrating. But I think that this is a good place for me to stop. And I'll probably try and do some more of this tomorrow. So, thank you very much, and I will see you again.